Welcome to the 5th Tonkocast. This week we have Brandon Oldenburg.
Yeah, Brandon is one of the most amazing artists and filmmakers that we've ever met. He's one of the founders of the studio Moonbot.
Yeah, Moonbot Studios. If you don't know them, great to check out their work. They won an Academy Award with their short, The Fantastic Flying Books of Morris Lessmore. They've made a slew of things, but one of the reasons why Brandon was out here in the Bay Area was to attend the San Francisco Film Festival with his new film.
Taking Flight, which was great. Like, we had our film Moon in the festival in the same category, and then we got to watch Taking Flight, and it was just a really inspiring film to watch, and hopefully you get to watch it at some point. Moonbot is just one of the models for us in the way that they pursue this indie kind of small studio with high quality, and definitely a studio to watch. You know?
Yeah, they're based out of Shreveport, Louisiana, and we went out to visit them, but we'll talk a little bit about that in our talk with Brandon.
Hope you enjoy it. Awesome. Well, our guest today is Brandon Oldenburg from Moonbot Studios. Brandon, thank you so much for coming.
So I want to talk a little bit about Moonbot, the studio.
Mm-hmm.
When Dice and I left Pixar 2 years ago, now, our first trip, the first thing we did.
The following week, right?
Yeah.
Actually, like a week after we left.
We went out to Shreveport, Louisiana.
Was it really that week?
It was that
really?
Really
That's
the
so
first thing we did,
crazy.
really.
It was the first
That's
thing
so
we thought it was
crazy.
an important trip to make.
And I missed you guys. Where was I?
You
guys
were
came to town.
traveling, I think.
I was traveling.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I was so bummed, but I'm glad you guys came. I saw the photos.
But it's a cool studio. I mean, Moonbot set in it's a lab.
It was originally, it was a biomedical research facility, and our first offices when we moved into that building were upstairs in a actually about the same size as your offices right now.
Oh, that's cool.
It was what was called a wet lab with a table kind of like this one. And we were all kind of rowed up on that one table doing all the animation.
And how big was that team that did Morris Lessmore?
Well, it grew in stages based on production. So we were just like a 4-person outfit, and we decided to go from storyboards to miniatures. And as miniatures grew, we were contracting construction help. But still, at that time, the company really was about 7 people in production on miniatures. Once we had all the backgrounds in the can, then we had a hiatus for a while. There were some other things we still had to square away. And then we had this opportunity to go recruit. And we really didn't have much money, and we still don't. So we just went to Ringling College because I serve as a trustee on the board, and I kind of like to kill a couple birds with one stone. So I do the trustee meeting and recruit, and it's all at the end of the year. And so we were able to, that first year, pull over almost like 12 people from that graduating class. Some interns, some had graduated, and then we just ramped up real fast that way. Built an animation team, a small lighting TD department. There were some people as well that came from SCAD and other places. And it moved fast, and we grew. And then we moved downstairs, the same building. That's where you guys saw the downstairs, right?
It was.
But I'm sorry, we're going to be moving out soon.
Right.
Right.
Rent's gone up, and we're running out of space as well. And an interesting opportunity has presented itself in the form of an elementary school, and it's going to be really different. What's great about elementary schools, if you think about it, they work like a campus. Like when I think about Pixar, as you know, you've worked there. You've got the theater, you've got the cafeteria, you've got the departments. And a school is broken down the same way. You've got the theater, the cafeteria, the classrooms, which can be departments, and administrative offices, that's where the principal sits. It's kind of funny. And there's even a PA, which we'll have to take full advantage of. Yeah. I don't. Maybe we'll do the all the other things that schools normally do, like prom and and homecoming, recess. Yeah. Well, and there's a Moonbot soccer team, and we have a great place to practice now.
Oh,
so,
great.
They do. I'm not on the team. So. I think after you reach 40, it's probably smart not to run around. But a few of the guys are actually older, and they do pretty good. But there's always these injuries that kind of just freak me out. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do that. Anyway.
Very cool.
No, the trip to Moonbot was one of the, one of the first things we did since we started the Tonko House. But
Right.
But it was definitely by far the most inspiring thing we did. I gotta say, in the beginning we were doubting if whether we should actually spend money that we should be really spending to grow our company, whatever, to travel, take time off and visit you guys. But it turned out it was a really great decision for us, because Moonbot is one of the studios that we look up to as sort of independent, small size studio that does big things, quality things.
Well, thank you for that, because we struggle in all the time, and it just feels silly that you look up to us. It's like we feel like we're on the same level as any startup right now, even though we may be 6 years old. The decisions that we've made have been intentional to grow a core team, which sometimes you would question. It's like, well, why are we doing that? Why don't we just stay like this 3-person outfit and just be like an architectural firm, and you just you do the drawings, and then when it's time to build the building, you contract the work, which I think there's a lot of wisdom behind that. But there's also something that we have to do in the nature of where we are located. We are not in San Francisco or Los Angeles or LA or New York. We don't have the artists that are just right there at your disposal when you need them. We have to go to the trouble, which there's a lot of time consideration that goes into finding the right people, a lot of investment, and you don't want to just only work with them for that short period of time during the project. I mean, they've changed their lives to be there. You want to retain and grow. And once you find some people that you connect really well with, and there's a chemistry, you don't want to let that go. And so that's where the rub is. That's the difficult part, is to retain and hold on. But there's the investment of that, and you got to work really hard to find the next thing to keep the smoke in the stacks. But you want to make sure that what you're cooking, I'm using all these analogies, you want to make sure whatever you're creating is of quality and is what is part of your mission statement as a studio. And we've just been very fortunate that even when we get work for hires, that they seem to align with our values of our company, and they seem to align with our steps that we need to make to grow, whether it's in creating a 2D pipeline, or whether it's just to enhance a certain stop motion look but use CGI. Along the way, we're learning new things. We keep trying to push ourselves to learn new things. But it is exhausting, and we question our decisions sometimes of, did we go too big too soon? But we're hopeful that, because we want to move into long format. This is one thing that I didn't realize when we started figuring out what we wanted to do with long format, is it's just such a slow burn. If you want to make a show, like a series, episodic show, which I think the popularity is increasing, is that the return on that investment is slow. There's the time that's got to go into just writing and creating the show, and then there's the show production, and then getting it out into the world and hopefully generating a fan base, and then doing a second season, and then the third season. I'm guessing and hopeful, if we are so lucky with some of these shows that we're just now starting to figure out, is that there's a return and it's all worth it. Where I can see the value in creating a movie, right? But it's more risk up front, but more reward quickly if you do a movie, right? And so there's always that desire and wish on our end to create a movie one day. But in the meantime, this whole new idea of branded entertainment over these past few years has grown, and we've been lucky enough to do the Chipotle, and then, for example, Radio Flyer, and now other opportunities like the Samsung spot that just came out. And we hope to continue to do more of that. We have a couple in-house I can't talk about, but that are more branded entertainment. And that's cool. And all of these, everybody, even like a corporate institution, they all understand the power of storytelling. They all understand the power of being genuine and honest. And when we can connect with a company or an ad agency that wants to really tell a true story, then we are all on board for that. We love doing that. But as long as this is the hard part, right? The distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can start to do a lot of these spots, and then you turn around 5 years later and you're like, what were we doing? It's like everybody keeps saying, when's the movie? When you guys doing a show? When you doing a movie? And it's like, yeah, we just kind of got, I guess, distracted, or we were thinking we needed to build the pipe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a kind of a combo.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some really talented studios out there that do great lighting and compositing and modeling and finishing, and sometimes I wonder maybe we should just be outsourcing that, I don't know, and just be working on the story. And we're trying to do both. And I think with that there is a greater risk, and with that potentially there's a greater reward.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see, yet to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you guys are doing here is very smart, and you guys are being very methodical, and all of your steps that you're making, at least looking at it from the outside in, it feels like you guys are making all the right decisions. To have, I'm sure it was a risk to focus all your efforts right after the short to then go into Moon. I wonder, here's a question for you guys. People start calling you saying, hey, we want you to do this or that? That's not really on your list. Did you entertain something like that?
I'm sure like you guys found it's like, I feel like, we were defined as much by the things we said no to as the things we said yes to. And saying no is hard because there's very real, financial things that we need to pay attention to. Running a business is different than just being an artist. And there's certain things that definitely pulled at us. But for now, we're really trying hard to stick to our guns and see. And it's a big risk, I don't know if it's the right decision. It's always great to hear from people who have a lot more experience, such as yourself, that, at least our decision making seems like it's going in a direction that makes sense. But definitely, VR is really big right now.
Yeah, that's what everybody's talking about.
Yeah, and we've entertained going into VR, and we're excited about this kind of new kind of medium almost to tell story in. And I think we're always
being
open
careful.
to it.
You're being careful about it.
We still want to protect the same value. Like you mentioned a mission statement. Like we feel very much like, if it fits within our mission, then by all means we should be open to it.
Yeah, we've got stars in our eyes with technology in the past with augmented reality, and we did 2 augmented reality apps that worked with 2 of our books, the Lessmore book and with the Numberly's book. And then along the way, PlayStation reached out and invited us to create an augmented reality game for the Wonderbook platform for PlayStation 3. And when we were finished with that game, and by the way, we're all still very proud of the IP we developed, and the animation in it is stellar. It's actually got a features length amount of animation in the game.
Wow.
It's about 80 minutes of content, and nobody's seeing it because when it came out, literally PlayStation 4 was announced like within a month later. It was sort of dead on arrival, which was okay for us. We got paid. It was a co-development, but at the end, and there's hope for Diggs to come out in the future as a character in another game. We'll see. But what we learned is you can be cutting edge, but you can be on that bleeding edge too soon, and no one sees it. So I think like you guys, you're being careful with when you jump into VR, because you need to make sure that people see the hard work you do, so that it leads to the next thing.
Right.
And sometimes you can do a novelty technology too soon, and no one sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the people you need to see it miss it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you, Brandon, the start of Moonbot a little bit. I met you. We worked on robots when I was at Blue Sky. Bill Joyce. Bill was the production designer, and then you were also designing for the film
out of Dallas.
RealFX.
Yeah.
And you were actually one of the founders of RealFX.
Yeah, you can say that. I think it's a complicated thing, but there's a gentleman named David Needham and another guy named Dale Carmen, two guys I went to high school with. And when I got out of art school, our art teacher kept us in touch, and we started talking. And literally, like the day after I drove back home to Dallas Fort Worth, like I had lunch with Dale and started working that day. And the company was tiny then, and we grew that company. But the conversation we had over lunch, that first time I sat down with Dale after art school, was like, you know, that company that's going to make a movie about toys, that's the kind of thing we want to make here. We want to make movies with computer animation. And, you know, yeah, I've seen those Listerine ads. I've seen those Lifesaver commercials. And I've seen Tin Toy, and I've seen, you know, Luxo Jr. Yeah, they're going to do great things. I could feel it. Yeah, we need to do something like that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do that. So that was sort of my focus, because Dale was busy in the trenches as a flame operator doing Coke commercials, and David was our financial, you know, CFO. And so then from there we brought in a rep. His name was Chuck Peel, and then we slowly grew the company, and we grew that for 15 years, and at a point where through this development I reached out to William Joyce and said, hey, we want to develop IP. Would you be interested in playing our sandbox with us? And we did. We formed a joint venture and developed 3 IP, one of which we sold to DreamWorks. But that's really wasn't my hope or wish or dream. I wanted that IP that we sold to DreamWorks really to be our, lack of a better description, Toy Story.
Yep.
But it was a business decision to let that go to DreamWorks, because there was some return in that, that there would be ancillary work and other things, and one thing led to another, and it seemed like the right idea at the time, and maybe it still is. You know, it's hard to say, but that was for me. My emotional maturity then, I've gone through some growth, and I had a hard time emotionally with that, because that was like a baby. It's like being like a teenage pregnancy, if you will, and having to give up your child to someone else to raise because your studio wasn't mature enough to handle it, or you weren't mature enough to handle it. And that was hard, but I took that very personal. But at the same time, the company kept growing. We started to do other development, and then that led to these ideas. And I remember Book of Life was something that was being pitched at the time when I was considering breaking away and trying something new, creating a new studio. And then that opportunity really seemed like the right idea and presented itself, and it was very amenable between the founders and the board, and everybody was really cool about that. So I left on good terms. And the guys have done great things at RealFX, and I'm glad. And I think I've matured a lot through the process, and because in some ways Dale and David took the blunt of the stress of the business and allowed me to just be free and creative. I didn't really take on all the stress. Now with Moonbot, I think I take on more of that stress and respect at the end of the day for how hard it was to grow. So I think that's where some of that maturity comes from. But still, a lot of room to grow, and a lot of things have been learned over even our 5 years at Moonbot. And one thing that I see with you guys and with new startups like Cuckoo Studios is that, you know, now's the time, right in your beginning stages, to, you know, have mutual respect for each other and mutual work ethics amongst your small teams, and then put all of your effort into development and try to avoid distractions as best you can. Do what's right for moving your IP. And you guys are running your outfits like architectural firms, which is good, because you do have the contracted work that you can lean on being in this state. But what you guys have is really unique with Japan. That is awesome, and that makes you guys super unique and a force to reckon with, and obviously so with the results in Moom, where everybody's doing it a little differently, you know, and I think I've learned a lot from you guys and from talking with the guys at Cuckoo and other places about just these different paths we're all on. But by you guys doing this little podcast, it's really helpful. I think it's cathartic for me to talk about, but it's been just the conversations we've had before this recording has been really good for me today, just to hear what you guys are going through and doing.
It's really fascinating to hear what we just talking about, like how you were with RealFix for how many years? 14?
15-ish.
years?
I don't know. I haven't.
And
it was
then
95.
you were. I remember you were the like a John Lasseter of RealFix. Like you were the creative head.
Whatever.
But then but you know what I mean, like when leaving that position to start a new company, what made you decide? Why did you think that was the right move?
There's a crazy story, and you can maybe put a link on your podcast to this other podcast. But there's a storyteller podcast in Shreveport, and I was invited. It's actually run by this guy named Chris Jay and his wife Sarah Aber, and the two of them. Well, Sarah works as our head of marketing at Moonbot, but on the side, the two of them do this amazing nonprofit storyteller series. And they bring people from Shreveport that all have different walks of life, and they have them tell stories. They don't tell my story, why I left. And it's about me meeting Michael Jackson for the first time. I don't know if I told you this. You know this Michael Jackson story? It's Michael Jackson's fault. That's why I'm in Shreveport. And so if you really want to know you want to know the details, you're gonna have to listen to that one.
But check it out.
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil it for you guys. But there was a project that I was gonna be working on that obviously didn't happen. So that was sort of one thing that I was really excited about. That then, when it presented itself as not happening, this one really just felt like the right thing to do.
Actually, I do remember that story. Actually.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, the tingling sensation was there when Bill and I talked about Morris Lessmore. And it's just like, this feels
Morris Lessmore,
the right thing.
You guys made Morris Lessmore after you started the Moonbot, or?
Morris Lessmore was something that we talked about on and off, ideated on a bit. There were a few sketches that Bill had done, but really the narrative hadn't been thought through. And then really buckling down after starting Moonbot and figuring out what it was, that's where the story really came to the table. It's funny, it's got multiple ingredients, and sometimes these stories, you don't find all the right ingredients for several years. And then you can tell when it's right. You can tell when all the ingredients are working together. So, yeah, figuring out the second, third act came through obviously a lot of hard work and buckled down, focused attention, which it needed after we started the studio.
Definitely winning the Oscar with it kind of gave you guys, even though you guys already had a very established
No, it was wind in the sails. That was huge, and it was a lot of investment and hope and wish that we would say the absurd thing, like, imagine a shelf and that's where the Oscar sits. Like, that's visualize that and let's go for that. I said that to Adam, and a lot of people were just sort of shaking their heads like, why did you say that? You totally jinxed us. But no, it's like, he's like, you want to just keep thinking positive things, keep saying positive things to each other throughout the process, and dream audacious dreams. And it worked out. And after the Academy Awards happened, as you guys know, you get lots of phone calls, lots of opportunities present themselves, and there's a small window where you can have some serious momentum. And for us, there was a lot of conversation, but we lost that momentum, and we entertained, I believe, now in hindsight, a lot of options, maybe too many. It's like, it felt like almost a year went by, and then we went, what are we doing? We've been entertaining all these things, but we haven't done anything. It's like, but we obviously did a lot. But at the same time, it felt as though, from a feature and intellectual property development standpoint of long-form narrative, we stagnated a bit. We did not move as quickly as we wanted to. But we did develop a lot of ideas to a point, but none of them had the focused attention we needed, just because of all these fun things like doing apps, doing books, augmented reality. That it's easy to get distracted as artists, and in hindsight, maybe it would have been better. I look at you guys and I'm envious in a way. I'm like, I love your focused attention and and how you're really kind of keeping your sights dead set on moving this one IP that you have with Dam Keeper. I think that's going to, in the end, pay off for y'all. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one question I do think, I definitely have, like, being in Shreveport, it's pretty remote.
We're in the swamps. Yeah.
Yeah, and what do you feel like is kind of the good and bad of that?
The good is when you return from the Academy Awards and they throw a ticker tape parade for you.
That's awesome.
I mean, the town is so happy that you're there, and they're so supportive of all of our employees, and they really open up opportunities for us when we ever feel like we're running into a wall, whether it's finding a new building or whatever. There's really great things that happen, and a lot of great support. And everybody feels really welcomed in that sort of small town kind of way. But it is a small town, and a lot of really great young talent works for us, and you have to, I think, be open-minded to what a small town can and cannot provide. And we've had some retention issues as far as like holding on to people, because some people, it's like it's not doing it for them as a city. They love the work, but it's just the city themselves. They're young, they're really pretty, single people that want to do their thing, and it's just, it's not working for them. So so that's been a struggle to retain people, but I think things have gotten better over time, and we've been able to be really careful with the kind of people we hire. We want to make sure that this isn't a distraction for them on their trajectory. A lot of people go to art school, as you know, or wherever, animation school, with the wishes and hopes to go work at Pixar or Leica or wherever. And we somehow convinced some of them to come work for us, and it was sort of like a distraction. It was sort of like, okay, I'll pit stop with Moonbot, and then I'll find my way to Disney or wherever. And that's one way to look at it. I like to look at it slightly different, which is people are comets. Really talented people are like comets, and you're just lucky to like be in the glow of their glow for a while. And they have trajectories that are far-reaching. They've got to go to amazing places. I think of like Jake Parker, for example. Super talented guy, right? Jake, before he went to Blue Sky, was with us at Real Effects. But before Real Effects, he was at Fox Animation, and he'd done the 2D work on Titan AE. And we were so lucky to bring him over to work for us after he had finished up, and he'd been working for a small studio in California. But I always knew he was just too good. He needed to be his own thing, and now he is, right? He's so talented, and he's definitely like one of those comic kind of people. You're just lucky to have been able to collaborate for a short period of time with him,
Yeah. One thing that I think both Dice and I mean, when we visited the studio, one thing that we kept coming back to was the energy level at the studio. There was something, we had both worked at Pixar, which is it's an amazing space. It's the people there are amazing. What was different about the people at Moonbot that we had met and spent some time with was this kind of being in Shreveport and, acknowledging on some level that, like, well, it's not like a big city, but we're here for Moonbot. Had this real family feel to it. It had a real, like,
it is a family.
We were, like, beyond impressed, I think. That's the part that we were really like, that's something special.
It really
not
is.
Like,
You
don't
can't
just
force
build
that
overnight.
You can't force it.
Yeah,
either.
it's just in the DNA of the studio, and I have
really
to say
is.
that was just phenomenal to kind of witness.
I'm glad you experienced that, because it is really amazing for me to witness. I feel personally, though, I'm a little bit on the outside of that family, and I try to protect it as much as I can, but I feel like I'm a bigger brother and I'm kind of separated. It's a weird balance being a boss and a friend, and I don't want to be that awkward parent that shows up to the dance party. Like, it's like we were all having fun dancing, but then the parents here. This is weird. So, but fortunately, I don't ever have to run into those awkward situations. It's like, with having 2 children and a wife, we have our lives that are constantly, overscheduled with too many dance recitals and basketball games. So unfortunately, I'm not able to be a part of the family get-togethers that the studio often has, but I'm always really proud of that, and sort of always excited to see and hear about how all the employees have such a tight camaraderie. And there's now a bunch of them hooking up. There's a lot of engagements. There's going to be 3 weddings, I believe, this year.
My gosh,
so and they're all Ringling students too, which is kind of wild. So We have three groups. I mean, I could be actually missing. I think there's probably maybe 4 actually. So, yeah, it's like Grey's Anatomy sometimes at the office. So, that's the other thing you don't think about when you start a studio is that you're changing lives, and you're not only changing them by location. You're actually like creating these family units. You never even thought about that side effect of it. Yeah, kind of weird. Yeah. It has nothing to do with animation, sorry.
No. It's really fascinating.
It doesn't, but it does. I think it has everything to do with like what we do and what we make. But what's in the plan? What's the future look like to you? Both the Moonbot for yourself and kind of for the industry.
Sure. I wish I could say publicly kind of what's happening with long form entertainment, and it's just there's too many things that are sort of dangling out there that we can't do an announcement about just yet. But long form entertainment in these new spaces is really exciting. It's actually in some ways more exciting than doing a movie. You get to really feel and connect more with these characters than you would in 2 hours, and then expand their worlds in ways that you never even imagined. So I'm excited about long form, but there's the slow burn of it, which makes it kind of risky and kind of scary. And certainly making a movie would be like the bee's knees, right? That would be the coolest thing to do. It's just about finding the right partner. And my statement, having this microphone here, I feel like this is you have given me this pedestal, a voice to the world, which I thank you for. But I feel like people need to know that outside of our studio, as far as CG production pipeline, there isn't another studio that can do it for our price. But more importantly, there isn't another studio that can do it for our price and quality. And obviously, we pride ourselves on the quality of the work we create. And it's like being in the swamps of Louisiana and coming out to California every now and then. It's hard to stay relevant in the eyes of vice presidents at studios and those who have the opportunity to potentially fund intellectual property into a movie. But that's something that we're continuing to expand on, and we're really, as of this past December, super excited that we have CAA repping us now. That really is huge for us, and it's been so helpful as far as them helping us open doors and staying relevant in the eyes of these people who control what gets made out in the world and gets distributed out in the world. And so we just got to keep working hard, making sure that we're doing our end of the job, making great stories that are worth telling. And so trying to focus our efforts on that while we keep the smoke in the stacks is the challenge. And that's where we are. It's hard work every day.
That's awesome. One last thing, since we're talking about the future, is there a possibility of Moonbot and Tonko House doing something together?
You did this on the mic, which is awesome. What Dice isn't saying is like I said that to him. I said that to you. You didn't say that to me. So yeah, it's so nice of you to say it like you said that. No, but like I was telling Dice the other day, it's like I really feel like there's like this. There's these new studios. We're just thinking about things differently. None of us have the wishes and dreams of creating these gigantic places where you have koi fish and you have this, this Versailles kind of setup of a studio. It's just too big and too daunting and unnecessary. It's like there's a way to maintain this sort of Etsy approach to production. And you guys, everything in here is handmade, like this table, the walls. That sort of handmade quality has so much of you in it, and I think that's what people want these days. Is they want to buy a gift that's been made by a real person. They want to connect with things and have meaning in the objects or the stories they consume. And I feel like what we're all doing individually, these really unique boutique studios all over the planet, have this opportunity if we want to like come together and collaborate, much like the way we were talking about Kazoo and Flight, right? Much in the way that these anthologies were put together in graphic novels, where you have these really talented people all telling unique stories together, maybe on theme, would be a really awesome, amazing thing to be able to do if you guys were up for it. And if other studios that we are friends with were up for doing it, I think we could do something really special. We could reinvent amazing stories in a way, and create an anthology series on the world. And then, who knows, one of those stories may turn into a movie too, But I think about what you guys are doing with moving into feature space. I would love to be considered, as far as our studio, to be considered to help you guys out if you were to need it. We all need to help each other in this space, but I don't know. Just thank you for having me, and it's such a huge honor to
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
sit here with your handmade table and the microphone. I love it.